Sent out a tweet, didn't do the YouTube thing. Okay, amazing. What's up? We are live. How's it going, everybody? UFC 257 post-fight show. Insanity that just took place. Appreciate everybody that joined the tailgate show and the fight companion. If you haven't seen that, go check out on our channel after this. We've got some great content there. It was awesome. Make sure you check those out. But let's dive into it right away, boys. Co-main and main were just pure ridiculousness. And let's start with the co-main before we get to the big show, right? Really the meat and potatoes, so to speak. Michael Chandler knocks out Dan Hooker in round one. I didn't see that coming at all. I thought maybe he got a decision. I saw that as the path, but to knock Dan Hooker out, be the first person to do so, nuts. What are your guys' thoughts on this? I'll start with you, Mr. Wells.
This was the most shocking. Well, I don't know if I can say that. I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say that anymore. But in terms of potential outcomes that we were discussing before the fight, this one was not on our radar. We had no indication or belief that he could end this fight by knockout, much less in the first round. You know, we thought he was going to have to lean on his wrestling and try to grind out a decision win. We did talk about a little bit about, the possibility of catching Hooker, but it's to do that in the first round and the way he did it, just making Hooker look, just completely out of sorts at times. Like, the commenters were saying in our live stream that he looked cold. He looked like he wasn't ready to fight. I think personally, just sitting with it for a minute, I think Hooker was worried about the takedowns. I think he was worried about that, and he was just trying to gauge what Chandler was going to do. And while he was doing that, Chandler took full advantage and hit him with that hook while he was backpedaling, and then rocked his whole world. So, credits to Chandler.
Yeah, it seemed like Hooker did exactly what the guys at City Kickboxing tend not to do, and that's worry about what the other guy's going to do. Mm-hmm. City Kickboxing guys tend to just do what they're going to do regardless, and they force you to adapt to them. Hooker did not do that tonight. He was very committed to just figuring out what Chandler wanted to do and then making his move from there. The problem with doing that against someone who has like that wrestle boxer combination is you're not sure which side of that hyphen you're going to catch. So he was gun shy to start with. Initially I went in this thinking, and I said it from a mountaintop, man, that this was the absolute wrong style for Michael Chandler to have success on a UFC debut. And boy, did he prove me wrong. Like Dan Hooker just looked totally out of sorts tonight. And man, what a big win for Chandler on like the biggest stage possible. We said this jokingly during the fight companion about them actually saying the name Bellator on the broadcast. Like the weigh-ins, the ceremonial weigh-ins annex announced Chandler as the former Bellator champion. Buffer announced him as the winner as the former Bellator champion on the announcements before the fight. So I thought, like, man, they're really setting up Chandler to fall hard with the Bellator label branded on his forehead. That's really what I thought was going on here. And maybe that's a wild conspiracy theory, but we've seen the UFC matchmake to do that same sort of thing before. So figure like, okay, the promotion is now just doing what the matchmakers have been doing, what they did to Hector Lombard and what they did to Eddie Alvarez, what they've done to several other champions coming in from other organizations. So I think Chandler really shocked the plans that the UFC might have had.
Yeah, from a business standpoint, we'll get to this from a holistic view later on. But this is the type of thing the UFC tends to bring in champions from other promotions and give them hard matchups so that they can lose and say, hey, yeah, our guys are better. That protects the UFC's brand. And those guys can still rebound and do, we've seen Eddie Alvarez do it. We've seen other people come in from Bellator and do well, but their whole thing is to initially say, yes, you're good, but you're not as good as us. And this type of matchup was kind of designed. I was right there with you on the mountaintop saying this is a bad matchup for Chandler. I thought he was going to get knocked out. I was screaming that from the mountaintop. I'm just completely wrong. Just Chandler, just I will sit here and say, yep, just way wrong. I never would have thought Michael Chandler would come in and knocked out Dan Hooker. I thought he could get a decision win. I thought he could, use his wrestling and maybe get a TKO in round 3 if he had done a bunch of work to build up to it. But this was just straight blasting Dan Hooker and putting him out like we've never seen before. And we've seen him eat shots all day and that's maybe what played a factor into this, which we'll get into. Let's go through some questions right now because we've got a lot already, and then we'll break this down a little bit further. We've got Zohair Khan. Night to the underdogs is an understatement. If you parlayed the co-main and main, congrats, you're rich. I don't know how much you needed to put down on that in order to make really good money, but I would imagine not that much. So if you bet wild on the co-main and main underdogs, congratulations is all I have to say to you there. Sound of Violence. What beer am I drinking? Stash IPA from Austin, Texas. Solid stuff. You should try it out. This is in a language I don't fully understand. I'm assuming it's who's the winner of McGregor versus Poirier. Poirier TKO. Performance bonuses. Ooh. Yes, we will get into that too here in a second. Dustin Poirier, Marina Rodriguez, Michael Chandler, Makhmed Muradov. We'll break down whether or not that makes sense in terms of those make sense. And you're on mute, I believe.
Yeah, sorry. No fight of the night bonus awarded. They went with 4 performance bonuses instead. So yeah, a couple of candidates in there that I thought might have been in contention for fight of the night. Surprisingly, very surprisingly, JoJo Calderwood and Jessica I would have been in that conversation.
That would have been my pick. Honestly, that was the most competitive fight of the night for me. That went the distance.
Right. So, so that kind of a loss of 50,000 that they might have been counting on. So unfortunate there, but 4 performance bonuses. So, damn.
Yeah. And we'll break that down a little bit later here because there's a lot to unpack there as well. But just circling back to Chandler and Hooker, a big question now, right, is what is next for both men? Because obviously this played out in a way that none of us thought it would. It's an emphatic statement from Chandler with a knockout win. Let's start with Dan Hooker. Where does Dan Hooker go from this loss? Who does he fight next? What does he do?
You know what, Pat? Quite honestly, I'm not sure if we can have the complete discussion about what's next for these two gentlemen without talking about what's next for the two gentlemen in the main event, because these are both high-profile lightweight showcases, and we've been talking about this mix of the top names at lightweight, how it mixes up, how many good matchups there are, and how many championship worthy fighters there are in that conversation. Tonight showed that more so than any other night really that I can think of right now. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to talk about the lightweight division as a whole, because 2 of the biggest pieces got wins, 2 of the biggest pieces got losses tonight.
Fair enough. All right, with that in mind, I'm assuming Mr. Wells, you're in agreement.
No, yeah, I 100% agree with everything Ant just said there. I don't have too much to add to that statement in regards to that question.
Well, anything to cap off Chandler versus Hooker before we move on to the main event?
I will just say that, as we kind of talked about already before a little bit, for a guy to go out there and capitalize on a moment, I can't think of a guy that's done that better than what Chandler did. For coming in back, his world against the back, or his back against the world, rather. Jesus Christ. It's been a long day. Coming all the way out to Abu Dhabi the first time as a backup, not having a fight, cutting weight, having to sit on the sidelines because he cut weight for an entire month, to go all the way back out there again, take care of business like that on a Conor McGregor card, which apparently, according to Dana White, said this is the second largest pay-per-view that they've had. He said that a few seconds ago. So that is huge. So what a platform to do it on, and what a way to make your name known with the UFC audience with that performance.
And he waited to really just express himself as a promotional vehicle.
Jesus Christ,
for this post-fight call out. Like that's not something we saw in Bellator. He was not that loud and that brash and calling out names like that outside of the Pitbull brothers. So yeah, that's a big move and great timing by Michael Chandler. Even better timing, we have got the mustachioed maestro, the one and only Drake Riggs, back on the show. Drake, what's up?
What's up, boys? How we doing, man?
Doing good. And before we get into your comments, Drake, because I know you got them.
Oh, I got plenty to brag about. Good night of picks for me.
It really is. Ah, man, this is gonna burn.
You know it.
Yeah. But with that in mind, keep dropping your questions in the comments. We will get to them. We're just going to break down the co-main. We'll get into those questions a little bit more as we go through the show. So keep putting them in there. We will address those comments and questions. But with that in mind, Drake, you were the guy that picked. Well, you picked Poirier originally, and then you swapped.
No, I never swapped. I just had a feeling.
Oh, you had a feeling.
Feelings. Okay. We got feelings now. Okay.
Yes, we're in touch with our feelings here at the Body Lock, okay?
But you were the only one to originally say Poirier was going to get this done. So the floor is yours. You've got that pick. Well, actually, let's wait for Poirier. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Chandler, you and Matt had Chandler. We've heard from Matt on this. What are your thoughts on Michael Chandler getting this done tonight? The way he got it done as well.
Oh, I mean, that was the thing. That was something else. We knew he had that in him to do it. But the thing was, like, could he do it against somebody as incredibly durable and tough as we've seen Dan Hooker to be? You know, we only can look at that Edson Barboza fight as the one where he took enough damage to, show that he's human and be hurt. Despite that, was still pretty inhuman, to survive the punishment that he took for as long as he did and everything. But like, Barboza beat him up worse than Poirier did in their 5-round classic and everything. But in this one, just took one perfectly placed shot from Chandler. And man, the precision, I told you, the speed and precision of that guy is pretty unique for his hand speed and just the athleticism that he possesses. I know they were, mentioning that on the commentary and everything, but it was a thing that I believed was possible, but it was too hard to predict because of Hooker and how good that he is and just being a tough guy. And so that was definitely stunning and just massive. Like, he could no better way he could have won that unless he did it quicker, but about as good of a debut as you could possibly have. And would like to see his wrestling, but it's like we don't need to because we know that he's got that there. This is the best way that he possibly could have came in there and debuted. And man, you gotta love it if you want to see those outsiders get respect. It's great. It's great in that regard.
Yeah, massive win for Bellator, massive win for Chandler and his brand. I mean, a lot of people were saying if he loses here, the hype's gone. He did not lose. He got a very emphatic KO that only makes him bigger of a name in the MMA community, and definitely on a Conor McGregor card, he's going to be getting casual fans too. And with that in mind, let's move on to the main event here. Before we do, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and leave your comments and questions. We will get to them after this. But gentlemen, Dustin Poirier knocked out Conor McGregor in the second round. And it was, emphatic. This was not a questionable stoppage. This was not he was moving a little bit, whatever. It was Conor went down, ate a couple shots. He doesn't even look like he knows where he's going. Face bleeding. Speechless. That's what I am in this, especially because we all picked, McGregor except for Drake, who we'll get to. We'll save the best for last, Drake. But Matt, Ant, I mean, I didn't see this coming from a mile away. Did either of you?
No, not at all. I mean, especially the way it happened. Like you'd assume a quick KO was going to be the work of McGregor, and especially the way the fight started off. McGregor landed some really, really clean left hands on him, and had him visibly dazed and rocked, and stumbled back a couple times. And to think you see a sequence like that, and followed up with McGregor being the one laying on the canvas out of it. That doesn't make sense. Like, just the growth in Dustin Poirier, just more apparent than ever tonight. Just man, he fought without the emotion. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I said on this channel about a conversation I had with King Mo, where he said before that fight at UFC 178, he was telling Dustin to wrestle. Like, this was it, to wrestle, and you can get the victory over McGregor. And he shunned the idea. Poirier shunned the idea because he wanted to fist fight the guy who had been talking so much trash to him. Dustin Poirier coming in, who is God, was an emotional guy, to come into a fight divorced of that emotion, just opened up a world of possibilities from a strategic standpoint and from an execution standpoint. And I think we saw that tonight.
It's hard to deny that, Matt. I mean, how are you feeling about all this?
I mean, listen, we did say if the fight went on into like the 4th and the 5th round, that's when Dustin would excel. Whew. Yes, for that much, like, for that to happen so quickly was kind of surprising. And the fact that Conor in the first round was checking those leg kicks, he checked 2 of them, very, like, perfectly checked them, right? And then the second round, stopped checking them. And then there was like where he was catching the kicks, and there were a couple of those. He had like the kick, he had the whole leg. In any other fighter that has any sort of ground game, or is any sort of confidence in their ground game, would have used that for a trip takedown. Conor didn't do that. He just held the leg and just like carried him against the fence and then let go. It was very strange, but I guess not unexpected, because we never see Conor do anything offensively grappling wise, right? But there was just a couple of weird things in that. And, after the fact, he blamed inactivity. And, if you go look at Habib's tweet right now, talking about switching up camps and everything, I mean, Jesus Christ. I don't know what was really going on behind the scenes with the man. But listen, to take credit away from Dustin Poirier and his hands and his approach to this fight, that you just can't do that, man. Dana speaking at the podium now on my other window. But you got to give Dustin all the credit in the world, man, because he got stung pretty hard in that first round, made a couple of adjustments, came out in the second, and then was like, oh, I can take the center of the cage and put pressure on Conor now. Did that and just unleashed all sort of hell. So you got to give Dustin all the credit in the world, man. And I have never been happier to be wrong about a fight prediction. So credit to Dustin, man.
I'm with you there. I mean, I didn't think it was going to happen, but I'm happy for Dustin Poirier. He's a great dude. He's done amazing things. He's got the, charity going on. It's crazy to see his growth in this sport. And with that in mind, let's go to the one man who picked Dustin Poirier to win this fight. And I'll admit I mocked him. I said it was a hipster pick, and it was trash. Jordy 51, Dustin's game plan is elite. That is correct. It was. Drake, you picked Dustin to win. How are you feeling? And is this how you thought it was going to happen?
I think it's a feel-good moment for anybody that's not just a complete Conor stan. I mean, come on. How could you not feel good for Dustin Poirier, of all people, to get this kind of win on this platform and just everything about it? Like, it's similar to, of course, not as big of an upset, but, Holm and Rousey, like that kind of feeling of like, oh, damn, how can you not feel good for Holly to be like that person to get that victory in that spot? It's kind of similar to that, I would say. But as for how it played out and everything, just a phenomenal phenomenal game plan by Dustin, and absorbed some very big shots in the first round, of course, as you guys mentioned and everything. The sequence of it is kind of how I imagined that it would have ended, but I thought that it would have been a little bit of a crazier, like, back and forth war, not like a super crazy brawl or anything, but a little bit more action packed in terms of swinging and landing some bombs. Nothing extremely crazy or anything, but a little bit more in that area, leading up to Dustin tiring him out with the fact that they got into that kind of fight. That's how I pictured this. But the sequence was a bit about how I imagined. I never thought that it would be like a cold one punch knockout. Like, I didn't see that. And if that was going to happen, that was most likely for Conor, of course. But yeah, about right. I didn't expect the leg kick game plan, but just watching it unfold like that, you got to think like nobody's ever really tried that approach against Conor, right? Which is kind of crazy to think about because he always stands so wide, and just puts that front leg out there. Unless I'm forgetting somebody who's tried to do that, but the way that Dustin implemented it and then Conor really failed to adjust to it. I mean, he adjusted well, like by grabbing the leg, like Matt was saying, everything, but just didn't do anything with it. So I don't know, that was very odd and something to work on for him, indeed. But yeah, just a brilliant game plan by Poirier, and man, I think it's kind of going to show a lot for future opponents of Conor, whoever and however many of those people there will be at this point. But he's got to change some things. Obviously, he's getting a bit figured out at this point, I think. And not to take anything away from Poirier whatsoever, if that does. But he's excellent, and he makes the argument for best boxer, like he said in the post-fight interview. He's very, very good, you guys. He should not have been as overlooked as he was. I will leave it on that. Put some respect on the diamond.
Yeah, man. The way he approached it, it's like he just went from a strategic standpoint. He went every route to confuse Conor to make sure he didn't know what route he was going.
Yep.
To start with the wrestling, move into the standing clinch work, to then go with the leg kicks. Like, there was just so much stimulus that Conor had to interpret that he normally is not. Normally he goads someone into trying to just wing and just punch their head off, or he goads them into just shooting and takedowns. And like, he gets you on that one or the other sort of thing. He had trouble with Nate Diaz, his ability to mix things up. And he got into that dogfight with Diaz. But the difference between the dogfight with Diaz and the dogfight with Poirier is the power. Like, we saw a brief bit of a sequence of them trading shots and going back and forth, and it ended when Conor went to sleep, because that the power differential is just too. Poirier is the wrong person to get into a brawl with. See, Conor probably has more power, just raw power, but it's from a clean sense. It's from that looking pretty as you're doing it sense. Like, Dustin gets in with that power in your face, and he's so comfortable in those positions. There's going to be no panic from him. I bet you his heart rate didn't change a bit from being at distance at the end of Conor's punches to being on the inside winging bombs on him, with their foreheads touching. That's something else, man. You can't get into a brawl like that with Dustin Poirier. Think of some of the other guys who tried that. Where did it land Eddie Alvarez? Where did it land Justin Gaethje? Add Conor McGregor to that list now.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
I do want to say, like you were saying, the comfort of Dustin in those moments. That was part of the thing that we talked about leading up to, is that Dustin needed to get hit a little bit before he wakes up, and he's not scared to stand in the pocket like that, because that's where he wants to be. And he did that, and he found those openings. There was even a quick moment there. If you guys go back and watch, there's a quick moment in there. I think it was after Conor tried to catch one of the kicks again. Dustin was here to Conor and gave him a little finger wag. It was real quick. So that just shows you, like, he wasn't really scared of Conor's power, even though he did get tagged a few times. I guess he was confident enough at that point to be like, all right, I know that punch isn't going to knock me out, or I know what to look for now, sort of thing. But that just shows you in that one little moment, gave him that little finger wag. It's like, okay, all right, Dustin's on one right now.
Yeah, I mean, Dustin, again, multiple times. I had Conor win in the first round, albeit slightly. It was close. And even through that, to watch that first fight of Conor and Dustin and then watch the second one, there were a couple of key differences there. There was the leg kicks that Conor didn't throw. I think that's a big one that will kind of, break down a little bit further here, because that was how he set up the big, punch that ended Dustin last time. And then seeing Dustin at this weight class where he's bigger now, he seems more comfortable. He definitely got stung by a couple of Conor's punches, but it wasn't like it was at featherweight where those punches really rocked him, really put him on the back foot and really put him into a bad position. It was like Dustin realized, okay, I can eat some of these. I can't eat them all day, but it's not like it was the last time we fought where if I get hit once, I'm out. That's not the case here. And Dustin's growth from where he was at the time he fought Conor back in 2014 to now has been massive, right? Again, the clean boxing, as Ant mentioned, the precision, the technique has just grown so much. If you watch that first fight, he's throwing wild almost the whole time. And he threw a little wild here. He had one or two wild shots that was reminiscent of the first fight. And I wondered, okay, maybe Conor's in his head or something and he's going to go wild here and Conor's going to knock him out. But he adjusted very quickly. He got the precision boxing in. He timed his punches right. And again, with that volume that Dustin does, once he senses blood in the water, he throws and he does not stop. And like Ant says, I don't think his heart rate changes at all. He kind of says, yep, all right, I've stung him. I've rocked him a little bit. I'm going to throw a massive amount of volume until you go down. And that's what happened. It was, we talk about the big punch that landed Conor on the ground, the follow-up that called the fight, but it was those 8, 9, 10 punches that had Conor up against the cage that stung him that really led to that. And that's what Dustin is so great at. You can't go in there and try and outbox Dustin Poirier. We've seen everyone try it, and everyone who has, Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway, has failed. The only person that we've seen really dominate Poirier since this resurgence has been Khabib, and that was with pure wrestling, right? So I think this is a phenomenal performance for Poirier. It is a feather in his cap. It is a massive win here. And I hate that Drake was right on every single one of his picks. Like it hurts my bones. But what are you going to do? With that in mind, we will get to your comments here very shortly. Before we do, we've got to talk about what's next for both the co-main and main event fighters. So let's start with Michael Chandler and Dan Hooker. Let's start with Dan Hooker. Where does he go from here?
Dan Hooker. I would love Tony Ferguson. I think that's a tough fight for Tony, of course, but if you think about where they're ranked and everything, the losses that they've just suffered, I don't know. Maybe Tony should actually get somebody a little bit lower than that after the type of losses that he just had. So maybe I'll take that one back. But it'd be very fun. I think it'd be a very fun fight, and one that stylistically Tony has probably a better chance in. I would think than somebody like Oliveira, who dominated him on the ground. Of course, Hooker's not going to do that. I don't know. Hooker, I would like to pull up the rankings to have a good choice here. I'll leave it at Ferguson for now, but I don't think that's probably the best one actually. So somebody else throw their comments in there.
I'll go throw in mine. This might sound like a one out of left field, but give me Kevin Lee. Dan Hooker versus Kevin Lee, like that. And it depends on what you want to do with either man right there. That is a great opportunity for both of them to make sure they don't lose a spot in a very crowded division. So Kevin Lee, that loss against Charles Oliveira doesn't look so bad now after seeing what he did to Tony Ferguson. So Kevin Lee isn't that far out of the picture. He's as of right now, he's ranked number 11. So he is just outside of the top 10. Dan Hooker needs, ranking wise, a step down in competition, obviously. So give him that, which would be Kevin Lee. But it's a great opportunity for both of them to try to make sure they leave their stamp and they're not kind of lost in the dust.
I like that one a lot. That was actually going to be my pick, and I'm a little pissed about it. Matt, who do you got?
Well, all right. So 2 options for me are, if you want to keep him along the same level of where he is now, ranked number 6. I mean, RDA is there, but RDA is coming off of a win. He's one spot below him currently. If you want to go further down the ladder, why not Beneil Dariush? I don't know. That's further down the ladder. That's going to be a fight. That's still going to be a firefight, but I think that's one where he could really shine and, get a big win for himself. So those are my 2 picks.
Yeah, and I'm in report saying Hooker versus Ferreira versus Dariush loser. I like that one too. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, my picks were all taken because it was either those, it was either the loser there, or it was Kevin Lee. I think that makes the most sense for Hooker right now. You could go, if I'm going way out left field here, I'm gonna say Islam Makhachev. I think that fight would be an interesting one, and again, really test Hooker to see, where he's at because. I mean, Makhachev is no pushover, but if Hooker loses that one, you got to think that he's either got to change something up or he needs to, be further down in the rankings, in my opinion, because I believe Makhachev is 15 if he's not unranked now.
13.
So 13, yeah. So I mean that's a big step down in terms of the rankings. I think that's a fight Hooker should be able to win. So that's my way far left outfield one. But I like. Again, the Ferreira versus Dariush loser, and I like Kevin Lee more. So I think those are all good picks. Let's flip it here to the man of the who would have been the man of the night had Dustin Poirier not shocked the world. Michael Chandler, where does he go from here? Because he's launched himself right into the title picture, I think.
Don't waste the opportunity. Just put Michael Chandler versus Dustin Poirier, slap a belt on that mofo. That just because now, if we are to believe, granted, the pay-per-view is always quote unquote trending well. If we're to believe that it's trending as well as it is, and as Dana's saying it is, a whole lot of people were watching these two men do business. Just capitalize on that, and you can have a potential mega fight that you didn't expect to have. Like you can have this huge fight with huge names that just got created yesterday, as opposed to relying on some of the old promotional staples. I like those two fighting for the undisputed title next.
Quick question: did you guys have trouble with the stream, as everybody was seeming to?
No, we did.
Very nice.
Yeah, they said apparently most of the issues were coming from the West Coast, so I guess Ant got lucky.
I did.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues. So.
Yeah,
very nice.
Issues on my end.
Right.
I mean, that's. I'm gonna go ahead and just jump in here, piggyback off of Ant. As the businessman, that is the fight to make. And yes, I know some of you are like, "What about Charles Oliveira?" And I say, man, I hate it. And I hate that Charles Oliveira is about to be overlooked for a title shot because he totally deserves it. But guess what? It's a business. And unfortunately, that is what the UFC will do. I would be remiss if that's not the fight they actually book.
But here's a prop bet for you. If that is the case, if Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier are announced for the next undisputed UFC title fight, does Buffer still announce Chandler as the former Bellator champion?
Did he say that and I didn't hear it?
Yes, he did.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I missed it.
I don't think he does. I think if he fights for any sort of belt, he doesn't mention Bellator.
I disagree.
Crazy.
I think he does. Until he fights for a belt in the UFC, I think he will be referred to as former Bellator champion. Since they did, I don't see why they won't do it again.
But I'm saying if he's in a title fight.
Yeah, if he's in a title fight, then yeah. They'll do it. And then after that fight, they probably won't. But I think they do.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it because it's a promotional thing, right? They're trying to pump him up as a championship quality fighter, and I don't see why they ever pretended like other promotions didn't exist. So it's just.
Now you don't need to pretend that now you don't need to even acknowledge the existence of Bellator. Now you've got a highlight reel footage of Chandler doing business in the UFC, footage you can use. And by the way, it was on a Conor McGregor pay-per-view card. So
that's true.
All the people saw it. more people saw this tonight and know who Chandler is from this fight than his entire run in Bellator.
Yeah,
that's a good point. That's a very good point. And before we go any further, just to not keep you guys waiting anymore, because I know you've been putting comments in the chat. We really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do hit the like button. Well, let's run through some of these comments right now. So let's take a look here. Let's start with Frank Castle. Is McGregor building up as an underdog next match? I'm gonna say
that's so hard to imagine.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say no. I don't think it's the case, because I think he'll be given an opponent that favors him. I think it's going to be a Diaz trilogy. I think it's going to be somebody that he should be able to beat in the promotion's eyes without much question.
I think they're going to give him Tony Ferguson next. That will be the best one that would be the best thing to put in front of him that seems beatable right now, and also has the top tier name. That's going to be a guy who you can also put on the posters and you can talk about in the commercials as a former UFC champion. So you can champion versus former champion who climbs back to the belt first. Yeah. There it is. That's the fight that's going to be made. And I think if we are to believe that Tony Ferguson has really hit a wall, it's a winnable fight for Conor.
That's one that would have some. I think Tony would probably talk some shit in that too. So we'd be seeing some classic build up there, probably.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, agreed. I think that could be an old school Conor talking trash, and with Tony on the other side, I think that could make fireworks. I like it. Let's see here, Teddy T8901. Who does the UFC have left to pimp out as their marquee fighter now? Is it really Bones or Bust? Oof.
Out of sight, but you know what? Dana missed a huge opportunity in giving these fighters a boost. Well, he was on, was it Sports Center or something? And they're asking, well, who? Not everybody's Conor McGregor. Who's the next big star that you have? And he spent most of the time saying and not dishing out the names of people that hold belts right now in his organization.
Crazy. He always does that too, right?
That was a moment to try to put people over.
He always does at these parts, and it's amazing that he's the biggest promoter of the sport. It's strange.
What you just said right there, Ant, is funny because that's the one thing that you can probably say, all right, Chatry does that pretty well. Chatry does
Hey, the thing is,
shout out to Chatry.
With Chatry, you got to ask, like, Chatry, this question is going to be phrased differently. It's not who does the UFC have left to pimp out as a marquee fighter. Yeah. Who does Chatry have to build up as a superhero? It's the question.
Yeah. Although, here's what I will say from a business standpoint, and I always get a lot of flack for this, but the thing about building the next Conor or Ronda, which is really what Dana wants, right? That's why he struggled with that, because in his mind, he's looking for the next Conor, he's looking for the next Ronda. I don't think Adesanya is the next Conor or Ronda. I think he is the next John Jones at his peak. I think he can bring in a lot of pay-per-view buys. I think he can be a star, but I don't think he can be at the same level as Conor or Ronda could, because the truth of the matter is, when it comes to those guys, there's that intangible X factor that Adesanya has to an extent. But think about Rousey. Think about McGregor, right? They didn't need a lot of promotion. And I think that's the mindset Dana has. If Dana and the UFC decided to shift from that business model and decided, we're going to go full force marketing and really push everybody, it could maybe lift Adesanya up to that level. But even if you're looking at Masvidal, if you're looking at all these guys that have kind of broken through that glass ceiling, so to speak, it's because of their actions in the octagon as well as that outside personality. And the thing with Adesanya is that while he has a personality that gravitates a lot of people, it also puts a lot of people off, and not in the way that, say, Conor does, where people tune in to say, yeah, I hate Conor or I absolutely love Conor. It's a lot of I love Adesanya, or it's like, oh, why is he saying that, or what's going on there? And it's not that Adesanya can't make that shift, but based on who he is and what he's done, I think he reaches a John Jones height. I think he will be massive in Oceania forever. And I think he will be able to draw in pay-per-view buys to a certain level. But I think if we were going to see Adesanya at that next level, it would have already happened. And I would say that for not just Adesanya, I'd say that for pretty much anyone in the UFC, because that X factor that really launches people into the McGregor or Rousey type of thing has to be a big moment that a fighter capitalizes on and has the right personality to build around. That's not to say Adesanya can't find that later on, just like Masvidal did, right? We've talked about that. Masvidal toiled away forever. Diaz toiled away forever. Hit that stride. I think Adesanya can totally get there. But when Dana talks about that next star and finding that next person, he's looking for someone that does that 100% naturally, that they don't have to put a huge hype machine behind because they already naturally build the hype. That's my 2 cents on it.
Well, the thing is, those names, Ronda and Conor, they brought different sort of fan bases with them that multiplied the people watching. So Conor brought a country, Ronda brought women, brought housewives and stuff to watch and pay attention. Adesanya has a continent. You really could. You could go a lot tougher routes than using that angle to market him. I think we can have a large conversation about the UFC's failure to promote certain fighters, and they're kind of in a pickle now with the result of this main event. How do you market, Dustin? How do you put forth now this race to the belt that Khabib apparently still has or whatever, without that big shiny name on the marquee that you really wanted to boost up so much, to the point where just a couple of days ago you were disrespecting Dustin by talking to Khabib about the Conor rematch. When Conor wins, man, you two are going to come back to a big fight. So clearly the plan was not for Dustin Poirier to win.
Obviously not. Listen, they dropped the ball so hard on this for so many reasons. I want to touch on a couple of points. One, not having this be a title fight. If Dustin Poirier did what he just did and gets a title wrapped around his waist, that the entire scene, that's natural momentum right there that you can build just by having a title wrapped around his waist after knocking out Conor McGregor. Like, look at the reaction on Twitter right now. It's crazy. Everyone in the sporting world, or that is any remote interest in sports, even if they don't, politicians and everyone are tweeting about this fight. Like, it's a massive moment. And you did not have a belt to put around Dustin Poirier's waist if he won. And then you look at the landscape of all the champions right now who are currently holding a belt. Who was the most articulate one who could really say, hey, get in front of the mic and cut a promo for me without any assistance? There's one guy that can do that, and that's Izzy Adesanya. Everyone else is going to struggle. Amanda Nunes doesn't speak English very well. Valentina Shevchenko doesn't speak English. She speaks English well, but it's kind of robotic. Weili Zhang doesn't speak English. Stipe doesn't speak English. Yambo doesn't speak English. Kamaru Usman, he doesn't get a lot of love for whatever reason, but Kamaru can cut a mean promo too, but it's not gonna resonate with a lot of people for whatever reason. A lot of people hate Kamaru. I don't understand it. It's a mystery to me. Khabib is not really a champion anymore. Volk doesn't cut a great promo. Petr Yan doesn't speak English. David Figueiredo doesn't speak English,
but he dresses very well.
He does. He dresses sharp, super sharp. So you had an opportunity here to have an English-speaking champion who speaks very well and is very confident and has got a great look about him, and just knocked out the biggest star in the entire sport, and you dropped the ball.
And then someone who's also, like, by all eyes, the other thing we can say, he's a positive role model. Like, this is a guy you can prop up as an ambassador of the sport, and you don't want to put a belt around his waist because you want to dick tease the audience about the possibility of Khabib versus Conor 2, a rematch that, quite frankly, despite what it may sell, just sounds like a dud from a competitive standpoint. I don't get it, man. I don't get it at all. They blew a big opportunity here, but they blew that opportunity because they were certain that Conor McGregor was going to win. Conor gets this big win, and they keep that belt on Khabib, maybe lure him out to fight Conor. And if that doesn't work, oh well, that's fine. We'll strip Khabib, and Conor's next fight is going to be for the title. That was the plan. I can guarantee you that without me having any sort of insider knowledge, without me being a journalist in any way, shape, or form in this instance right now, I can assure you that was the plan.
I will say very quickly here that before we get to more of these comments, I saw maybe 4 or 5 commercials leading up to this pay-per-view, as well as in the prelims. I didn't see more than 3 seconds of Dustin Poirier. I think I saw, 95% of those commercials were all about Conor. Oh, here comes
similar to UFC 207.
Yeah, that is a serious Nunes Ronda vibe.
Ronda. Yep, and it blew up in their face, and it's gonna hurt them. That's for sure. We'll get to that too. Let's go through some more of these comments here. Jo Media says Charlie Olives gets KO'd. We do need to discuss where old Charlie Olives, aka Charles Oliveira, is in the title picture here. We'll circle back to this, Jay, because that is the odd man out at this point, and it's tough. Joffrey, miss Khabib a lot. Yeah, I feel like we all miss Khabib a lot. It sucks, but he's decided to retire. He's done what's best for him, and you got to accept it. At this point, I don't see him coming back. I feel like we all agree on that. Juan saying McGregor is done for now, hasn't been the same lately. I argue that that's semi-true, right? He's not. I don't know. I don't know if he's done, but he hasn't been the same. He's been inactive, which he pointed to. Is there anything else we need to touch on this one?
We're still in a weird area where we don't know whether Conor is kind of ended his run of being a top level fighter, or if Poirier is just that good, because we know we saw a very, very improved version of Dustin Poirier since they last fought. So I really need to see Conor one more time to make a fair assessment on that one.
Yeah,
I think it's the latter there. I think that's just how good Poirier is. If you think about those shots that Poirier did take, of course, not a whole lot or anything, but they were still very good ones. If somebody else took those, very possible they would have been more hurt than Poirier was and been able to maybe hide it as well as he did. So I think that, and just the pressure that Conor put on pretty quickly, which was kind of weird. Herb just kind of blew that start of the fight, a very small note, but that guy, I'm not going to get into that.
It wasn't the biggest mistake he made tonight.
No, it was not at all. But yeah, I think that's just how this fight was more of a testament to how good Poirier is, and Conor definitely can still beat a lot of people. He's still very good, I think. But he's always been he's one of those guys who got to the point because of how popular he is. He's perpetually overrated. Like maybe not. He's still very good, of course, but how much, hype and popularity and backing is behind him. He's always going to be overrated a little bit, no matter what, unless he loses 6 in a row like BJ Penn and is just looking awful. I think that's the only way that, we'll see, okay, the guys, he's lost them a little bit, but I think he still can beat plenty of guys.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. We may come back to that, because I might argue he's a little underrated because so many people kind of keep him out. I mean, even on our GO conversation, right?
But look at how everybody was picking him in this fight, though. Everybody, except for somebody over here.
Yeah, we know.
Picking Conor in this fight. I mean, we have when you have video evidence of what happens when these two people meet and one of them gets violently knocked out. Yeah. It's indisputable evidence right there. Like, they fought before, and Dustin lost worse than McGregor did tonight. So I don't think that's really that far off. And and when you break it down from a technique standpoint, it makes sense why you would say Conor wins, because all sorts of tape study that we've done leading up to this, we all came to that conclusion for a reason, except for Drake, obviously.
Right.
Thank you.
And we all know Drake's conclusions are just ridiculous and nonsensical, so that makes sense. With that being said, perfect segue here from Teddy T8901. We know the winner of the second fight typically wins the third. That is true. Was there anything tonight to leave you wanting a rubber match here? I would say, for me, the one thing that leaves me wanting a rubber match is what Conor brought up, which is inactivity. We've seen ring rust before, right? We've seen fighters look terrible after they take a break and then they come back in their first fight, they look awful. And then second fight, they start to look more like themselves, look better, kind of capitalize on that. Juliana Pena is a great example of that. Took a huge break, looked not so great in her first time back. Then she fought Nico Montano, ended up winning that. And then tonight started to finally look like her old self. I truly believe ring rust, quote unquote, to use the wrestling term, is a real thing. I think that for some fighters, it really affects you. Other fighters, not so much. To me, Conor had been inactive long enough that I would be fine with seeing him come back. I know Drake's. Yeah,
I had to.
Cruz is the exception and not the rule when it comes to ring rust.
That was too perfect right there.
Yeah, that's true. Cruz, yeah.
Inactivity might have played a part in this when you look at, like, he's in before the bell rung tonight. It had been in 2 years he had like 40 seconds of cage time.
Mm-hmm.
Like 40 seconds. I'm sorry, like, ring rust is a real thing. Even if Dominic Cruz says otherwise, like, he is the exception and not the rule.
Him and GSP.
Right. Now, I'm not saying that Conor, being more active and stuff, and he faces the Dustin Poirier that he faced tonight, the result might be exactly the same. It just might be the same. But I do think there is at least some consideration that should be thrown in that direction.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I definitely want to see a third fight. Obviously, just for the fact that they've traded knockouts. As Sean El Shadi highlighted earlier in the evening, Conor was the first person to knock out Dustin. Now Dustin has been the first person to knock out Conor. Obviously the Floyd Mayweather fight notwithstanding, but inside the octagon, it's a fight that makes sense from a promotional standpoint. Obviously, Conor still has a wealth of options, because I agree with the points about the inactivity. Yeah, it's a thing. It is a thing. But you also can't take away all the credit from Dustin either. So Conor has a pair of trilogies on his hands that he can clamor for right now, or he can go a completely different direction with any other top lightweight. So he has options to fill his calendar for the next couple of years. It's just how he wants to approach it and how the UFC wants to approach it. But yeah, any of these fights are interesting to me, because I do want to see how Conor rebounds. Like he said tonight that, he wasn't prepared for the leg kicks. He just said that in the post-fight, that he wasn't prepared for leg kicks. Interesting. So now we have two areas of the fight game that Conor is not well equipped to deal with: wrestling and leg kicks. So we got to work on some things here, Conor.
Yeah, 100% for all that. And let me see here. What else do we got? So we got a lot of talk about, Tony versus Conor. Somebody ridiculously said that Ant nailed something, which that can't be right. So I don't know what that's about.
In the comments tonight.
Was that Ant on his alt account?
Yeah, I think that's it. Adam Pitzer asked, how much more motivation does the UFC need to make a lightweight tourney? Habib needs to turn down Dustin, or a lightweight tourney for Habib? I mean,
can we just leave the name Khabib Nurmagomedov alone?
Yes,
this man does not want to fight. There will be, like, a lightweight tournament needs to exist because he does not want to fight. No, like, Khabib is turning down everybody. Why does he want to fight Dustin again? He wiped the floor with him the first time. You see what happened if you rematch Dustin Poirier after you wipe the floor with him. What can happen to that? Don't do it. It's no point. He's proven everything. Let the man retire.
Yeah, I think we're kind of all on the same page there. Here's one. Oliveira being the champ by the end of the year is an easy bet.
My man, Gabriel.
I mean, it's a bet. It's a bet I can understand, but it's not an easy bet. Like you just saw what Chandler did. You just saw what Poirier did. Justin Gaethje is still alive, ladies and gentlemen. This is very, very real. Very, very real. And RDA is back at lightweight too.
It's a bet. I will just say that it's a bet that you can be somewhat confident in. I wouldn't put it down as a lock just yet, not by any means, especially considering the way Dustin looked. Man, there's the lightweight division is really, really exciting right now, and I just wish they would go ahead and just say this is what we're doing with the title, because that's the most frustrating part about all this. They really dropped the ball by not having that in play tonight. I don't know how many different ways I can express that. My goodness.
Yeah, I would say looking at this bet, the odds got worse based on tonight because as Mr. Wells mentioned, there's no belt on the line. So they're going to do Poirier versus Chandler next for the belt, or at least that would be the smart business move, which means that by default, Oliveira is going to probably have to fight 2 more times to win the belt. He's going to have to fight at least number 1 contender match. See in the chat here, we've got Oliveira versus Gaethje. That makes sense. If you don't do Gaethje versus Diaz or whoever, I think that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, Oliveira is probably going to have to fight at least 1 more time before he even gets a crack at the title now. So I would say that bet is not necessarily a bad one, but the odds have gone down based on what happened tonight because there was no interim title, no vacant title, nothing. Mention of the title was Poirier in the post-fight interview saying, I think I'm the champ if Khabib's retired. So they're not just going to promote him to champ based on that. I can't see that happening. Here we go. Arthur Antonio Nguyen. Can you guys believe Ribas didn't try to replicate Carla Esparza's strategy against Marina Rodriguez? Yeah, this was a fight that I am surprised again that Ribas got knocked out. I mean, me and Drake said this was the upset that we had. The 2 things I could stake my name on tonight are the Brad Tavares decision and Marina Rodriguez as being the underdog. But knockout, I didn't have it all here.
I was feeling pretty good about Marina getting this upset. But of course, I didn't think that it would be by knockout. I expected a decision. Similar to, the Chandler case where it was definitely possible, but, didn't think that both of these fighters would really rise to the occasion in this exact way that they did. Figured they had it in them to get the win, but just not that impressively on both sides of that spectrum. And it's like I was saying, like Ribas, I don't think she was ever going to try and replicate a Carla Esparza strategy because, first of all, Carla is really the only person who does Carla Esparza type strategies. I guess if you wanted to say that wrestling, game plan, then maybe, the Tatiana Suarez is of the world, which is, I guess, just Tatiana. But, of course, she hit the 1 takedown in the first round, but she was talking about it the entire time leading up to this fight, wanted to test herself on the feet against the superior striker. Bad idea. Fight smart, especially after how you did in the first round. Like, it was poor fight IQ, I think, by Ribas more than anything in this one. Not to take anything away from Marina whatsoever, but this is what we knew she was capable of. Maybe not being able to, we knew she could put her away. She's got good enough technique and all that. It was just she hasn't been a one-punch knockout artist or anything. For the most part, has phenomenal volume and technique, everything like that. But more just considering how that first round went, that's kind of a big part of it, I think.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Let's see here. Before we dive into the rest of these comments, I think we'll hit the rest of who the other guys should fight. So we've talked about Hooker. Chandler we've mentioned. We all seem to be pretty much agreement in that round. Let's talk about Poirier and McGregor. McGregor first, because he lost. Where does he go from here? Is Tony versus McGregor the fight?
Tony Ferguson. That's the guy. That's the fight you make. that's a fight that will have some heat on it. You still, because I know a lot of people are going to say the Diaz trilogy, but you can keep that Diaz trilogy in your back pocket still. That trilogy fight will always turn heads. The moment those two start talking to one another, everybody's going to want to watch it. So keep that in your back pocket. Tony Ferguson, Conor should be next.
Disagree.
Yeah. Ooh, disagree.
Disagree.
Please tell us how you're wrong, Matt.
Yes, I'll tell you I'm wrong. There is no bigger fight promotional wise right now than the Diaz trilogy. And they will be trying to capitalize on all sorts of money because that's what the UFC does. They're trying to make the biggest bang for their buck. That is a fight that makes sense. It's a trilogy. They can do it. Nate Diaz will show up, collect his check, and ride off into the sunset again while never, coming back again, unless it's a fight that makes a lot of sense for him financially. So go ahead and do that. It's not the riskiest fight in the world for Conor because he's shown he can beat him. So it's a tough fight. I'm not saying it's easy by any means, but I think the Tony Ferguson fight is a lot tougher for Conor because Tony will come in with some crazy shit and try to get that to the ground. And as we've seen tonight, Conor is susceptible to leg kicks. So best believe Tony will bring some leg kicks to that fight, whereas he doesn't have to worry about that against Nate. So if you're looking for a fight to get Conor back on the winning track, it's that one rather than the Tony Ferguson fight.
Man, that's the really weird thing about the Diaz fight, the trilogy, I think, is because let's say that they do make it next. You promote that fight solely based off of their history. Because if you don't, you look at what just happened in their last two fights, they lost pretty badly. It's like if you promote it like, oh, these guys have a chance at getting back at the title. Like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody's going to buy that at this point. You have to go purely off of the history, which I think is probably still enough to get people like, all right, who cares about anything outside of just seeing how this third fight goes? It could work, but for me, I would love to see Conor stick around and actually be a consistent contender for once at lightweight. We haven't seen this yet. We still haven't seen this. This is the closest thing that we have gotten to it is starting with this fight. And that didn't go very well. So you want to see if he can rebound off of that in another fight with another highly ranked contender, like a guy who's obviously coming off losses or a loss as well, like Tony Ferguson. Maybe you could do Dan Hooker if you wanted, but I don't know if that would be as likely. There's history to the Ferguson one because they were lined up to fight, never officially scheduled, I don't think, at any point. But there was that those paths were leading to crossing at some point. So that just feels like the right one with where everything is right now. And if Conor wants to actually prove himself and continue to make any sort of championship push, he would start with Tony, because if he beats Nate, of course, the UFC could be like, he beat Nate, we'll give him a contender shot, or fucking just give him a title shot because they're crazy like that. But if you want to really get the fans to believe, I don't think a Tony one would help a whole lot with that as well, but it would help more than a Diaz win in the eyes of everybody who knows what's up, the more than casuals and everything. And so the Ferguson one seems like the fight, I think.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, especially because that Diaz fight, again, if he lost to Ferguson, you could do the Diaz fight. You could do that trilogy. I think the trilogy does make a lot of sense right now, but if you're going to do Ferguson-Conor, I think you do it before Diaz-Conor, because Diaz-Conor is a lock, especially with the way Diaz has fought and lost recently, that should Conor lose again to Ferguson, okay, do Diaz. If he beats Ferguson, you can still do Diaz. That fight is a good one to have just in the back pocket because of the way Diaz has gone since fighting Conor, right? He hasn't done particularly well. He's beat Pettis. He lost to Masvidal. He's kind of been on the sidelines. Makes sense. Let's get through some more of these comments here. Okay, let's see here. I see one about Conor retiring. He's already said he wants to be more active, so I think we can all leave it at that. But there is one here. Ooh, here's a good one from Puguru, I believe. His name is
my man Puguru.
Puguru. At what point does Conor stop drawing? I think this is a big question.
That is the question.
That is the question.
I didn't know Conor was an artist.
But
Mr. Wellsard feeling disrespected by the word.
I thought Ant was the dad in this group. I didn't realize you were. Matt, I had no idea.
You sound like your pull-out game sucks too, Matt. I think we are dangerously close to the point where Conor stops drawing. It's been about 5 years since he's had a quality win. It was just shy of 5 years where he knocked out Eddie Alvarez. So we're looking at a win against Cerrone, which certainly has its fair share of question marks surrounding it, based on where Donald Cerrone was in his career at the time. Getting dominated by Khabib, getting knocked out by Dustin Poirier, and also daring to be great but getting outboxed and finished by Floyd Mayweather Jr. We haven't seen Conor win a real fight, like the sort of fight that got everyone's blood boiling and got everyone excited and genuinely curious as to what's going to happen for a very long time. It's been a long time. It's been Conor getting people that feeling based on celebrity and not in cage results. We are dangerously close to the point where Conor McGregor does not sell unless he's put opposite of someone who's going to draw attention, like a Nate Diaz.
I'm going to disagree with you there, Ant, but I understand where you're coming from.
You know what, Pat? Fuck off.
Well, all right. Okay, I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for y'all motherfuckers to turn off me. I'm here for it. Here's
that point of the night.
Yeah, it is that point of the night. If you are shocked by the language at this point, well, too bad. It's
you really were any fucking attention earlier tonight. Bro.
That's true. Here's the thing: is McGregor will draw less. Yes, I think this is a hit. I think this will give Poirier a rub similar to what Diaz did. I don't think will be as big because he's not the first guy to beat McGregor, right? Similar to Khabib, who got a rub from McGregor and then got another rub from being as dominant as he was. I think you get a little bit of shine on Poirier here, not a ton, but still get some. But look at tonight, right? Yes, he beat Cerrone. And that is questionable based on where Cerrone's at. We can all agree on that. But look at how much media and attention and everything else happened tonight. Is he going to draw a little bit less? Yes, I think so. Is he in danger? No. And the reason why is if you look at Holly Holm, if you look at Nate Diaz, if you look at some of these other guys who have gotten the rub and then faltered, it affects them a little bit, but there's a reason. I will say this and shout it from the mountaintops every damn day. There is a reason Holly Holm gets as many opportunities as she does. Go look at the ESPN ratings when she fought Irene Aldana after losing multiple times. It's just the way of the business. You have the people that followed Ronda, that then Ronda lost to Holm. A bunch gravitated to Holm, and they're going to stick with Holm, and Holm's still competing. Same thing with Conor. You're still going to have a bunch of Conor fans. Will it be less than the height of his popularity? Of course. Is he going to stop drawing? I don't think so. I think he reached a level where as long as he fights, he's still going to be a big draw, and he's still going to make the numbers, right? Muhammad Ali in his last several fights where he lost or looked awful, still a massive draw. A massive draw every time. Oh, it's Muhammad Ali. I think McGregor hit that precipice and has now at a point where no matter what happens, as long as he gets into a cage or a boxing ring, he's going to draw. It's going to go down if he keeps losing, especially like this, but it's never going to hit a point of he's not going to bring in significantly more pay-per-view buys than most of the other fighters on the roster. So that is my argument there.
I'm inclined to agree a bit more with you, Pat, on this one, and
Ah!
I argue that his next fight will be very, very important. Though I think that it will be he'll be just as much of a draw as he is now. And if not, that fight will draw a little bit more because people will want to see how does he rebound from this knockout. Wow, this was the first time he actually got put out like that, like worse than the Floyd one. And okay, that was Floyd, but this guy, Dustin Poirier, all the casuals aren't really sure who he is and everything. I mean, maybe he's more popular than most, of course, because he's fought Habib and all that, and the history of fighting Conor before, yada yada. But depending on how that next fight goes, if he loses that one in the same fashion, that's really bad. Of course, he's always going to be a bigger name, a featured attraction, no matter what. Like you said, I think he has reached that point. But everything really hinges on that next one, I think. And that's why the UFC would probably be smart to give him somebody who is still pretty a good, notable name, possible contender, who's quite beatable for him, a la Tony Ferguson.
Well, I tell you, it'd be a great time to have Anthony Pettis still around, wouldn't it?
Oh,
Wow. Look at you. Look at you. Listen, there's a couple of other things here that we haven't quite really touched on. As I mentioned before, he has so many cards in so many directions he can go with next opponents. Like I said, the pair of trilogies he can tap into if he wants. Dustin is speaking about the trilogy right now in his post-fight press conference. But promotional card from Conor's standpoint that he can play at any given moment, whether it be at this next fight or the one after that, if he loses his next fight, is he can disappear for 6 to 8 months and then drop a video on his social media of him being, super gritty footage. I'm back, like back in the gym, training, sweat, like think Nike sort of montage where it's like, I'm going hard again. Like, oh, people are back. They're believers again all of a sudden because like Pat said, he's got that promotional power already built in now to where all he has to do is say the right things on camera and people will get interested again. Drop that hardcore training montage on us after you lose your fight and see how many people just don't get like, oh, Conor's back. He's got the fire again. It's that easy for Conor to get people interested. That's all it takes at this point. And like I said, you mentioned all of the potential opponents for him, no matter who it is. They're all big names, whether it be Diaz, whether it be Poirier, whether it be Ferguson, whether it be, if he ends up in a fight with Gaethje or something like that. All of these fights will sell more than any other, seemingly more than any other title fight at this point too. So it's just what it is, man. He's built his brand up so well to where people are going to be interested in to see what he does. And that's just that.
The weird thing to think about too is like he's at that point where you imagine only main events from here on out. So like from that selling point too of being that top guy and just how the UFC builds around that presents a little bit of a challenge for them, especially if he does lose that next fight and the one after that, assuming he is to continue fighting, of course, right? So just a little point I wanted to mention.
I mean, there was another reason why I brought up the name Anthony Pettis, because that would be the guy I think of where he was held up to mainstream acclaim, not as high as Conor, but he was on the Wheaties box. He was like the face of the UFC for a brief period of time, and they really put a lot of muscle in behind promoting him. And when he starts losing, he's on the undercards. He's fighting whoever is available to fight at the time, and now he's not even in the UFC after his best looking performance in a very long time. To the point where we only cared. Well, I didn't say we, but the general public seemed to only care when Anthony Pettis was fighting Nate Diaz. Like once again, that Diaz name, having that other name. Conor is getting closer to the point where he is solely dependent on the other side of that equation now, when it used to just be, oh, Conor's fighting. Like when he fought Dennis Seaver, we fought Diego Brandao, names that otherwise don't ring a bell outside, barely ring a bell inside of some of the most hardcore fan circles. But Conor sold those cards. We are beyond that point now. He needs a Diaz. He needs a Masvidal. He needs something. I think he needs to be taking a 3-rounder against Tony Ferguson and let the chips fall where they fall from there.
I could see all that, but I don't think, even if he loses his next fight or beyond that, I don't think you ever get a non-main event Conor McGregor.
If you can put like one of the titles that's not going to draw a bunch of attention on it, then you can work out the details with Conor as far, because people are going to buy it. They like, it's going to get bought more so than, like, say, put Davidson Figueiredo or Valentina Shevchenko as the main event, whoever they're fighting for the title, have McGregor versus Ferguson as the co-main. You can pay Conor whatever. And you could pay him what would have been probably a main event bonus, give him pay-per-view points, whatever the case may be. Make that a low-stakes 3-round affair.
Again, I think I get what you're talking about from a merit standpoint, but I think he still draws too many pay-per-view buys. I think they put him as a main event because of that. I think based on what we know from Paul Gift's study and everything else, I think they are going to continue to put Conor in main events probably for the rest of his career. Even though I hear what you're saying from a business standpoint, he moves the needle too much that it's not going to be like a Nate Diaz, right? Who fought Pettis in a 3-round fight on the undercard of Stipe versus Cormier. I think unless you have another star that's up there, which maybe if Adesanya reaches that next plateau, then you go ahead and do Conor in a co-main or something like that. But until that happens, Conor's too much of a draw. And even if you worked out the logistics, they're going to want Conor in the main event. But that, I mean, I see what you're saying. Regardless, let's hit through some more of these comments here, because I know that people keep dropping, which we appreciate. We really do. And we're a little slow to it, but we're getting there. Let's see. Looking at some of these. Let's go through. We've got. There was a really good one here. Oh, okay. I'm in report. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerning is Conor's regression? Right now, I'd say about maybe a 3. That's where I'd put it. I don't know where everybody else puts it at. I don't know that he necessarily regressed as much as Poirier was growing.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to call it regression. He's only lost to the absolute best. Conor still smokes 99% of the UFC's lightweight division.
I'll say 2.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
I don't think he's. I think again, I will give him some credit for the inactivity thing. I don't know. We have to see what he does next, and how quickly he turns around from this, and how he looks in that next fight.
Yeah, Arthur right here. Are you guys worried that when Dustin, right after winning, went up to Dana and said, "I don't have a love for this anymore, but I'm a bad man"? I was a little bit initially. I will say that I was. But based on his post-fight comments and his presser comments, which we'll get to here in a second, I'm not worried anymore. I think he's going to be sticking around. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he's firmly entrenched in the division. He's going to keep fighting. Anybody else concerned when that happened?
Little, but no, not really. I mean, I think Poirier, for someone who was like just tearful at the podium, losing to Khabib to unify the belt. He's too close to that moment, like that close to having undisputed gold, and now you've had the biggest win of your career. You've avenged probably the worst loss you've ever had, and now you're going to walk away from it all. I doubt it very seriously.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. I thought it was just like an emotional moment sort of thing. Where you just, whatever came into his head for whatever reason, he just said it. But there could be some truth to it. I mean, it's something that you can't just like completely dismiss. But yeah, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine once he, settles down and wants to, figures out who his opponent's going to be next. Because he's out there saying right now he's not fighting Michael Chandler. So that's the thing.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's what I was about to get to. I'm glad you brought it up, Mr. Wells, because yes, Poirier said, I can guarantee I won't be fighting Michael Chandler. They can do whatever they want with the division, and that he wants a trilogy fight with Conor or Nate Diaz. next? That is big. That's a big one, and it's hard to imagine, that doesn't have ramifications in terms of what happens with the belt. Is Dustin kind of sounds like he's just saying do whatever with the division. I just want the big money fights or the big fights against Diaz or McGregor. Am I wrong there?
That's the only explanation, I think.
Yeah, he's following the formula, man. Like that's what happens. Like Henry Cejudo got that belt and started talking crazy at the moment he got it. Tyron Woodley got that belt and started talking crazy the moment he got it. Like this is the UFC now, thanks to Conor in a lot of ways. Like this is what happened. You find yourself in that potential big money position. You better capitalize, especially someone who's been toiling at this for years, like Poirier. I mean, how long ago was it that we saw him on that documentary? Before he went into the WEC. Like how long ago was that? And now this guy, it just got $1 million payday from if I'm to believe some reports that I saw earlier. Got $1 million payday and is so close to getting another shot at the title. Man, fuck out of here.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Let's look through some of these other comments here. Here's an interesting one from that's gotten some feedback, so I will post it here. If Conor lost another fight, could it be acknowledgement that he isn't actually this incredible fighter, but instead some inflated, charismatic, high-profile moneymaker, and people like to like him?
No. No. Those other things are correct. He is charismatic. He is high profile. He is a moneymaker, and people do like to like him, but he is a fantastic fighter. And what happens when you have two high-level fantastic fighters fighting each other, one of them has to lose. It's just that simple.
Yeah. I think this speaks back to the overrated comment, or I'm sorry, the underrated comment that me and Drake went back and forth on, where a lot of people kind of think of that mindset of maybe he's not amazing because he lost. But no, this is Conor losing to the highest level of competition. This is Conor is still an amazing fighter. He still went out there and starched Jose Aldo, who was the king of that featherweight division for a decade, and made it look pretty easy. Then went up, beat Eddie Alvarez, 2-division champ. Although yes, whether or not it was true, champ behavior, the way they had him hold the belt, all that's neither here nor there. But the point is, he's still one of the best fighters on the planet. And I think depending on how his next fight goes, that really speaks as to where he is in terms of his ability. Has he, fallen off of a cliff somehow? Has he kind of like missed his prime? And that's that. If he goes out there and gets starched by Tony Ferguson or Nate again, maybe that speaks more to where he is at now. But he still will be one of the best fighters. He's a Hall of Famer for sure. You can't deny that. I see we're all in agreement there.
Yep.
That's good.
No argument for me.
Yeah. All right. So there's not much left in the comments. We got one here. We got the 4-man tourney. Ooh, if we were gonna do a 4-man tourney, Poirier, Chandler, Oliveira, Gaethje. I mean, that makes sense.
We said already. Those are the names we said. That's without the tournament format. We said Poirier versus Chandler for the belt. Oliveira and Gaethje, 2 winners fight for the next title shot. So that makes a lot of sense. It's just a tournament format instead of just having 2 one-off fights.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll do that straight tournament. I think they will do the one-off fights as we've talked about, where you put them on the same card. You have that, I think that's kind of what they wanted to happen tonight, but it sounds like Poirier is just not accepting that outcome. So there you go there. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense with those 4 at the top of the division. So with that in mind, we've run through most of the comments here. Let's hit what we think is next for Dustin Poirier, now that he's made these comments, and then we can wrap up the show here because I know we've had a long day, and we again appreciate you guys watching. This has been awesome. This has been great. It's flown by for me. I know it's flown by for some of us as well. It's couldn't ask for a better audience. So we appreciate it. If you've hit the likes button and the subscribe button, we love that too. If you haven't, please do. We want to hit that 1,000 mark. We did get a bunch of subscribers today. So again, shout out to all of you who did do that. We love you guys. Dustin Poirier, what's next for him now that he said he's not fighting Michael Chandler? And does that mean you do Chandler versus?
He'll crumble under pressure. They all do.
He's gonna fight whoever they tell him to fight. Like that's what's gonna happen. Whoever's on that bout sheet, he's gonna sign that. He's gonna sign that bout agreement. And chances, I'm gonna bet it's gonna be Michael Chandler, especially when they start getting numbers back from this thing. And if it's selling as well as we expect a McGregor card to sell, yeah, that's the fight they're going to put together. And maybe they sweeten the pot for Poirier, or maybe they just tell him, hey, the division's going to move on without you. And yeah, I don't know. He might be flexing his muscle now. He got that hot sauce. Might be popping off now. So yeah. he might just, all right, screw y'all, I'm good, and chill. So
listen, he did say that he wants to be a champion. Like he said, he can't walk away now and call himself a champion. That was another quote he just dropped a few seconds ago. So apparently he's looking for title fights. So it is 100% contingent on what the UFC decides is going to be that next title fight. And if it's Michael Chandler, like Ant said, he's going to sign that bout agreement. It's just that simple. He doesn't really have much bargaining power right now. I mean, yeah, he just beat Conor McGregor, knocked him out, shocked the world. But at the end of the day, if you want to be a champion and the UFC doesn't have a clear understanding of what they want to do with that right now, you're going to do what the UFC says to do.
I don't know, Drake, any thoughts on this before I chime in?
No, I'm pretty much in agreement. I think that, yeah, he'll do whatever is asked of him, unless he decides to ride off into the sunset, which I doubt. I highly doubt that. But that would be the only other thing. I think he'll do what they ask.
So here's my take on this. I think that he's kind of making a move here, especially with what he said about he doesn't love this anymore, but he's a bad man, all of that. I think this is a leverage move by him to capitalize off of the Conor win and either get another Conor fight or get a Diaz fight. And I wholeheartedly believe that what he will say is, if they say, guess what, you're fighting Michael Chandler, and he says, no, give me one of these guys first. I wholeheartedly believe that what he will think is, make Chandler versus Oliveira for the title. That's fine. Go ahead and move that division along if Khabib's not coming back. But I still want this fight first. And I think based on the rub that he should get by beating Conor, that makes sense. From a business standpoint, why not do Chandler versus Oliveira or someone else for the title if Dustin is dead set on a Diaz or McGregor trilogy? Because, I mean, if he's okay taking that fight and saying, all right, I'll get back to the belt. This doesn't have to be for the belt right now. I want that money first, which is what I really think he's angling for with those comments. Then there's no reason for the UFC not to do it. They can move the division along. They can, pump up Michael Chandler more, or Oliveira, who's looked great, right? So either way, you get a winner there who looks phenomenal, because now you have Oliveira on a crazy win streak, or you have Chandler coming in and knocking out Hooker and then beating who kind of is the de facto number one contender if you look at the win streak and the merits that Oliveira has. And then you have Poirier versus Diaz or Poirier versus McGregor, get a bunch of money from that, and have the winner move over and fight. If it's a McGregor trilogy and he beats Poirier, perfect. You now have a perfect reason to put McGregor back in the title. If it's a Diaz fight and Diaz somehow wins, well, guess what? That's just going to make Diaz a bigger guy. And then you could have the Diaz-McGregor trilogy. That's a perfect time to do that. And then give the winner of that to whoever is the lightweight crown holder. I mean, I think if Dustin is really trying to go with a money fight first before the belt, it will make sense on all sides to do it right now. Does that make sense? Yeah. I see a lot of nodding head.
You're preaching some wisdom there. I'm reevaluating my thought process. So
it's another win. Flash.
Got him.
Got him.
Man on the panel. So yeah, you get points for that.
Yeah, and appreciate that. And now we're getting close to the end here. Again, appreciate you being with us. But with this one, we have to talk about Adam Pitzer. Just dropped on this.
A bomb.
Dana said they didn't catch the guy.
Oh,
they didn't catch him.
No, they did not. What he said was that the guy caught on to them somehow. Apparently, the guy realized they were coming after him, and so he shut down his website and actually put up a message.
Is this
saying,
serious?
Yeah, this is dead serious. This is what Dana said the post fight. He said the guy put up on his website ways to legitimately purchase the pay-per-view and did not host the stream this evening. So somehow this guy that they were targeting hardcore must have figured out that Dana was listening to his phone calls. Said, you know what? I got one for you, Dana. Go to ESPN Plus and order.
Oh my God.
I was by Irene, man. He looked out the window and saw it.
Yeah.
Like,
That was all the noises I heard. You guys warned me. I caught on, everybody. We did it. We avoided it.
Parker. Dana, why lie? Why? Why even this? Now you look silly. The guy, you didn't scare the guy off. The guy didn't exist. And just as many people that wanted to watch this illegally did, and you did nothing about it. It's okay. Everyone is getting pirated. It's what happened.
The best part is the stream, right? Like, we saw so many issues about ESPN Plus mess it up. Like, this
instant karma.
I mean, just
pirate stream because their legitimate one failed.
Yeah. Exactly.
How many people were like, were on the fence about buying it, and so they're having problems with the stream? I think I'll just find a website for that, fam.
Find a body of water somewhere.
Yeah, it's amazing, unreal that happened. It's been a bad night, as somebody mentioned in the comments earlier. I forget who, but it's been a bad night for Dana between the site crashing during a McGregor pay-per-view and then Poirier knocking out McGregor. It's been bad for business.
He must losing.
He must lose. It's just not what Dana wants to see. Miller Light 8301. Do you think McGregor looked nervous from the walk-in? Rewatch the walk-ins on YouTube and see clearly. I didn't see that myself, but
body language police.
Yeah, right. I think it was more so Conor walking out to a half-empty arena because of the pandemic. Conor is used to electric crowds that are unmatched by anyone else. It's the first time he experienced anything like that ever in the UFC. So that was probably just a culture shock, but a shock of the moment of the time that we're in more than anything.
It's about like, oh, this is weird, and that sort of reaction. But I think when you're an athlete on that level, I just don't think that sort of stuff really gets to you. I don't think you're nervous in a way that regular people get nervous. That just doesn't compute. Like, you think about what they do for a living. They beat each other into concussive states and break limbs, for money. Like, this is not the pursuit of people who feel fear and nervousness and anxiety in the same way that everyone else does. So I don't think those rules apply. You or I, or one would have been quivering and peed a little bit or something, but McGregor's not wired like that. That's why he's one of the best fighters in the world.
Although I would say, Cerrone's been open about being very nervous before fights. There's been a couple fighters that have said they get nervous. So he's kind of his own separate style of head case. I mean, this is a guy who when he's not fighting, it tries to kill himself in a variety of ways on a regular basis so he can feel his heartbeat raise. Like, he's not a regular dude. He's a guy who got kicked in the mouth by a horse and then went to fight Nate Diaz and had his intestines hanging out of his body, and next thing you know was in a cage against Jeremy Stevens. Like, this dude he's a weird one, man.
Psycho.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, he's adrenaline junkie. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's see what else we got here. Wrapping up the comments. Let's see. Steven Donica comment. I wonder what Connor's team thinks. They were so confident and motivated. Comment. They were
When
very
aren't
confident.
they, though?
But yeah.
When aren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're always going to be confident.
Yeah, they really are. It's hard to say. Perugu here, is Dustin Poirier the nicest guy in MMA?
No.
He's on the list, but I wouldn't say the absolute nicest.
He's on the pound for pound rankings.
Yeah. He deserves a ranking for sure on that list.
I have Stephen Thompson holding down that championship belt right now.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
Junior Dos Santos, close second.
Yeah, I'd say that makes a lot of sense. I'm with you there.
Glover's a real nice guy.
Glover's
up there, yeah.
Oh, Danny's saying Stipe is. Yeah, Stipe's super nice. That's true. He's up there too.
Diego Sanchez, I think, is one of the nicer guys too. He deserves a win. He's really.
I think I think this though sums it up very well out of Pittsburgh. Wonderboy did apologize in the middle of fighting Jeff Deal. He was like, "Hey, you all right?"
That's what I'm saying. No argument there. No argument.
Yeah, that's
Shout out to Ben Rothwell too for telling his. I don't remember who that was, but to kick him back in the nuts after hitting him, giving the nut shot of his.
That's true. That's true. We did that.
No,
too?
I don't. I want to say Tybura. I don't remember who it was. That was such a hilarious moment. He like slaps his nuts like, kick me back, dude.
Right.
All right. Perugo's asked this twice, so I'm gonna throw it out here.
He's persistent.
He is. So, guys, what are your thoughts on the Twitter outrage among some circles over the Ric Flair remark by DC on commentary? Are hardcore fans angry at pro wrestling?
I didn't know this was a thing. I
didn't either.
I didn't hear anything about pro wrestling fans, being angry at pro wrestling. Who knows, man? But we know Cormier is like a pro wrestling apologist, also. So.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's possible.
I didn't even hear the comment or see anybody say anything about it on my tweet deck, so I don't know.
He was. What was he comparing it to? I don't remember what he was making that even comparison. It was Michael Chandler's his promo, his post fight interview. He's like, he just pulled, I'm going Ric Flair on him out there.
There's nothing wrong with that. No, come on, people.
Yeah,
and it's not like he threw out a super, a not famous wrestler name. It's a very one of the maybe the most well known one out there. One of them anyway.
We hear the woos, all the time. So I mean, and let's see.
If that did happen though, Puguru, that is definitely people being a little bit of just salty little bitches for no reason.
Being salty. Panini Big Boy, welcome. Who won? Poirier did win. Yes, that is correct. Appreciate you joining us.
He just comes in and asks for spoilers like that.
Yeah.
Hey man, appreciate it.
Right?
Yeah. He did. All right, so looking through that really wraps up most of the comments here at this point. I mean, again, crazy night. Amazing time. Loved every minute of the fight companion, the pre-fight, the post-fight, everything. But just not what we expected, like in terms of outcomes. Really?
Really?
You didn't have them the way you did. Okay. You didn't have Chandler knocking him out. That's what I'm talking about.
True. I got the main event. It's a little more.
Dude, you're going to be insufferable until the next event.
Yes.
Yeah, he really is. He really is.
Yep. Yeah, it's man.
Let me have it.
Yeah.
Right. I will say this though. I will say this before we get out of here because I'm trying to keep up the spreadsheet throughout the entire year of the best of the year. So we do have a couple of additions, I think, from this event. Dustin Poirier, with his bid for performance of the year, fighter of the year. Right? Maybe do you think this one will hold up for event of the year possibly? Because it's a pretty damn good event.
Main card was very good. Yeah.
Main card was sensational. The prelims kind of dragged, so it's probably going to get an honorable mention because then once we get to the end of the year, we'll have some more nominees, and then criteria like that is going to scratch this one off.
I feel like the events at the beginning of the year in this category, that's probably the hardest one to keep consistent to the end of the year. Like, They don't generally make it that far in the nominations when it comes down to it, but you never know.
Sure.
Yeah, event of the year is so tough because, right, you can have a fight night that just all of a sudden delivers 11, 12 crazy performances regardless of who's fighting. So, yeah, I think
and
event
of course
of the year
that year-end show always puts up a nod there. Shout out.
Yes, there's Ryzen.
That exists, everybody.
That exists. That is a thing. You know what? I'm going to give you this, Drake, because you got all of them right, and we all did terrible otherwise. Although not Ant did the worst. He got an 0 for 4, so predictions. So he should feel the worst of all of us. But that being said, Perugu says here, last question for Drake. How would Dustin or Chandler do as kickboxers, considering they don't really do much on the mat? Okay.
You would get eaten alive because they are not kickboxers.
Facts.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even look competitive. So
yeah, it would not. It's like any of those cases where, boxing, anybody where they're going into a sport that isn't their expertise, it's always not going to favor them very much. So that counts for kickboxing as well, Pugu. I know, of course, we have seen people go from these sports more so than, like, let's say just boxing, MMA to boxing or whatever. That's the one we always look at. Like, we've seen Cyborg go to Muay Thai, do very well, but of course get beaten down very badly at the same time. Overeem, of course, MMA to kickboxing, did sensational, but also took some losses, came back. We've seen this crossover before, but those guys are more, those guys and gal, Cyborg, no disrespect there, very good strikers, very, very good strikers. And that's kind of more their base than, Chandler, for example, who has that wrestling background and everything. They're just not, they're very, very good strikers, obviously. But when you think of the elite in the entire sport, they're not the first to come to mind. Like, Overeem doesn't come to mind anymore, really, but he used to be like, okay, who are the best strikers in the world? Overeem, and then Cyborg still comes to mind, for the females especially. So no, they wouldn't do very good. Let's put it that way. Yeah,
I think that makes sense. I think we're all in agreement there.
And I disagree too about them not doing much on the mat, as we just kind of mentioned there. So
true.
But appreciate the question, Puguru, of course, always. My man.
All right. So let's see here. So I said that was the last question. Do have one more.
You liar.
I know. I'm so sorry. This will be the last question.
Men of the people, though.
Yes, of course. This is a loaded one. Is there racism in the UFC?
Bam, we've been streaming for 15 goddamn hours today. I don't have another 12 to answer this question in me.
I don't have the energy for this one.
All right, Miller. Like, we will get to this.
I will happily address this in its own video. Like, more than happy to do it. It ain't gonna happen tonight, fam.
Yes, but I wanted to address. I didn't want to just gloss over it. So yes, we will answer it in a separate video.
Hey, it is the rock gif. No comment. But yes,
yes. But
dude, that was perfectly utilized this week, Matt. That was amazing. That was so funny.
So Miller Light 8301, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube, and we will do a video about this because it is important and it's something we need to cover. But yes, we can't cover it tonight. It's been a long day, as everybody said here. It's been a thing. So appreciate the follow on Twitch. That's great as well. Again, wrapping up here. If you haven't liked, subscribed on whatever platform, please do. We love you guys. We love answering your questions. Thank you so much for the chat. Thank you so much for the engagement today. It's been fun. I'm Patrick Auger. That's Matthew Wells. That's Ant Walker. That's Drake Riggs. And, I'm going to let Ant take it away with his signature because he does it better than I can. So go ahead, Ant. And,
all right, here we go. So remember, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. So always stay beautiful, stay positive, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.